of us, this was that like, what is happening moment, possibly also what you're going through watching this video. I'm fogging up. I'm just gonna, let's try without the helmet. So I think that for all of us, this was that moment we went, what was happening? Has Black Noir been going through psychosis, or is it actually just a maladaptive coping technique that he has all of these fantasy creatures that have been around in his world? Is this the way that he sees things, and why? Well, I thought that it would be interesting if we all asked the question together. So let's go through first what really is psychosis. Psychosis is when your brain is processing the world around you differently than everyone else. And that means that you might see things, smell things, hear things, feel things that no one else does. So this can happen because of trauma, physical or emotional. It also has a biological factor in many of the cases, and sometimes it's just our way of coping with things. And for a lot of people, we have a very vivid fantasy life, and that's completely fine and healthy. There are many different types of psychosis. We're not really going to go into that because that would be pretty much just a diagnostic, but we're going to go through if we think that this is psychosis or if this is more of his own fantasy world where he chooses to escape through, which would be a coping mechanism if you talk to your plants or your animals or see creative creatures that are around you, but you've just created this as a way to give yourself comfort or make yourself feel less scared or worried when you're not feeling good. And that's fine, and that can be really helpful and even fun. Versus a true disconnect where you don't understand and you're not able to process things the same way that people that are more neurotypical may be able to. The first question that I ask if someone tells me that they've been hearing things or seeing things is, how do they hear them and see them? Is this just inside of their head, or do they see them and hear them like they see and hear me? That's that first step of disconnect. The next one is, do they know if it's real or if it isn't real?
Irving, sooner or later, you're gonna have to talk about it. Remember when you were 9 and you hid in that ball pit?
We know that from Irving's own story, he's been seeing these creatures since he was 9 years old. Now, it might not be that he actually has been seeing them since 9 years old. For that, we might need to ask a family member. But he believes that he has. It could have been that since the traumatic brain injury, since that point, he believes that he's been seeing these creatures since that time. And that's the problem when we're diagnosing someone and we can't actually ask them straight up questions. It makes finding out a diagnosis a little bit more hazy and difficult. That's why I don't really like diagnoses. I don't really love labels in the first place because I feel that it kind of pigeon boxes us. But I do think that in this case, the question of is this psychosis or is this just fantasy is a really valid one.
Right over there. After you paralyzed Louis Frankel? This is just like that.
Psychosis carries a lot of positive symptoms, things that you express, and negative symptoms. Negative symptoms are things that you do not do or you have less of since this has happened. Positive doesn't mean like good symptoms. They mean that they are something that you are expressing or expressing more of. That could be disorganized behavior, disorganized speech, delusions, or hallucinations, which we can tell already that there's a whole bunch of them that Black Noir expresses. Negative symptoms are symptoms that you lose or things that you show less of. This could be less motivation, less mood, a lack of emotional feeling, decreased movement or activity, and a lack of interest in things that you may have been interested in before. And you may also notice changes in personality where you may be very outgoing and now you are much more withdrawn. Now, depending on which of these symptoms you express, the type of psychosis that you may be dealing with would be different.
We're your best pals, aren't we? We got you through that Hard Rock Cafe massacre in Lagos. And by golly, we'll get you through this too.
Together, we're gonna be okay. You're our friend.
So you know that for Black Noir, Buster Beaver is a coping mechanism. These are his friends that have supported him through other times of distress. And we often need that. That's that thing, that inner voice. For him, his delusion, these creatures are really positive and supportive when he happens to need it. And when he's scared, this is the area that he goes to. But does he believe that they're real or not? And the first clue is if we go back to the beginning of this scene. So you see Black Noir opening up the cans of food. Not only does he open up this can of beans, but there are older cans of beans that have been left there, remnants of them. He's actually trying to feed his creatures to make sure that they're well, and he doesn't even clean it up. Perhaps for him, the old animal dishes are even empty, but they're left there and you can see them rotting. And so this is the first clue that he sees these creatures as real. And you see all of his friends on the wall. He has imprinted, probably from a very young age, perhaps when there was that traumatic injury to the boy that he caused. They're all on the wall and he's pulled those out and they become the creatures that he has staying with him to help support him in times that he needs. And that's what happens when we have a lot of distress. Sometimes our mind can create its own reality to be able to protect us, keep us safe, make us feel like we're welcomed. And sometimes also it's just a place of escape inside of our mind in order to be able to survive. And then he pulls back because he's not ready to be able to face the things that he needs to face, even with this support mechanism in place. And when you actually think about it, that means that probably even from season 1, he's had these creatures around him supporting and helping him throughout the entire time. So when we see him not talking to anyone, which could be because of the psychosis and could be because of the traumatic injury, and also could be his own selective mutism, possibly, these have been his voice, his inner voice for him.
Me and the others have something to show you. Something you pushed deep down.
The other piece that's kind of interesting is that in all the commercials, Buster Beaver does not actually have a speech impediment. He doesn't stutter. But for Noir, he does. And I think that that might be his own manifestation of his own speech injury that he has sustained at some point. Maybe also it's just to have us more empathize more deeply with him, that this is Noir's inner child at play. The stop in this scene where we get to see that there's nothing actually playing, that it's only in Black Noir's head, is really important. This is showing that this is not actually happening. This is completely a manifestation for him. And he's replaying a memory of something that's happened in his past.
I just got off the phone with my manager. Why would you say all those horrible things about me?
You're not good enough. You think you can be me? You're not a movie star. Understood?
That's the thing with repressed memories. We often repress things that have too strong of an emotional content, that are too damaging, too hurtful, too painful to see. Sometimes also it can happen for things that happened during our childhood. We box them away and put them into a cupboard or a closet where we might be able to have access to them, where they can't emotionally damage us because they might have too much emotional content for us to be able to cope with and deal with. And that's why we push a lot of things away in our life. But for Black Noir, this is a memory now that he really needs to be able to access. And that's why Buster Beaver brings him to this, to understand why he has to be scared of Soldier Boy and what really happened.
So much more of Soldier Boy's abuse you could take. So when Stan Edgar made you an offer in Nicaragua, you jumped at it.
It also makes a lot of sense to be able to play out these traumatic injuries through a cartoon. It's a lot easier for us to process things with very strong emotional content in smaller bits and pieces and chunks so that you're not being inundated and overloaded with everything at once. And that's why I often will segment things or only remember bits and pieces. And then slowly we may, if we spend the time, be able to interweave it back together into our memory, into our consciousness, so that we can then access it and use it to be able to better protect ourselves. But a lot of things at once can sometimes overwhelm our system, can even make us faint or have an anxiety attack or forget the memory completely, like what happened to Black Noir. And And now we realize that it wasn't just shrapnel or incoming missiles that had Black Noir have this brain injury. It was specifically Soldier Boy. And it may be one possibility of why he sees all of these cute creatures that surround him.
This is some tough stuff. You need to face him. But we know how sensitive and scared you are.
Yes. We're here for him.
I love how these creatures are really kind and supportive for Black Noir. They give him these feelings of positivity when no one else does. And Black Noir, even though he doesn't speak, he has shown a lot of compassion and care and thoughts. And a lot of times that's what we do. We armor ourselves up so that no one can see those soft sides of us that we're so worried that we'll be judged for or that aren't going to be that accepted from society. I think that a lot of us have that feeling that Black Noir does, that we can't really share all of what's deep inside of us, but it's lying there somewhere.
It's okay. Bravery isn't having no fear. Bravery is having fear. But you do it anyway.
I love it. That's the best line, Buster Beaver. Thank you. Like, that's what we need to hear. That's the truth, right? That is what courage is. It's being able to go towards things when everything inside of your mind says, don't do it, avoid, withdraw, become defensive, armor up. So I love that he gave this piece of advice, this thing that he really doesn't want to do, but he knows that he has to.
Time to finish what you started!
And I love the little birds. They're not even one of the characters from Buster Beaver's restaurant. It's kind of like he's a little bit of a Disney princess, which I think is the cutest thing for someone that's like Black Noir, to have these little tiny cute creatures around him that soften him and make him feel good. I think we all need a little bit more of those Disney princess moments where we can uplift ourselves and push ourselves forward when we really just want to withdraw and not try anything at all.
Don't worry, Irving. We are so proud of you.
He did what he had to do. He confronted his fear. Because even though he was, I guess, theoretically alone, he had all of his positive little tiny creatures that were around him to be able to support him and to be able to say those happy, positive things of they're proud of him, which means he's proud of himself.
Soon you'll be in the sweet embrace of Christ the Lord.
Need to make your own quick getaway? Then get prepared with the knowledge you need with today's sponsor, Brilliant, where you can gain an understanding of the basics of computer science, physics, quantum mechanics, game theory, and everything you need to get prepared for whatever the world may throw your way. Brilliant is an amazing tool for learning STEM interactively, so if you want to learn more about science, technology, engineering, mathematics, just check out Brilliant's growing catalog of courses, which are specifically crafted to help you learn concepts by working through them yourself in visual, hands-on ways. And that's the best way most of us learn. And all the lessons are presented in little tiny bite-sized pieces, so you can learn at your own pace. There's no pressure. And if you ever feel stuck, Brilliant has in-depth explanations that break down the material even more. Like their course on logic with challenging problem-solving exercises, you'll construct those critical reasoning and thinking skills that are the basis of mathematical reasoning. They also have the course on scientific thinking, where you'll open your eyes to the world around you by solving puzzles with science. And in this, you'll learn the laws of physics and the principles of engineering and learn the rules by playing and exploring the concepts to solve the problems interactively, which is the fun, easy way to learn. To get started for free, just head on over to brilliant.org/Georgia Dow or click on the link in the description, and the first 200 people will get 20% off Brilliant's annual subscription. Just click on the button on the screen or head on over to brilliant.org/Georgia Dow. Clicking on that button really does help out my channel, so thank you so much, and so does clicking on the playlist above for more fun reaction videos. So do you think that Black Noir was dealing with psychosis, or do you think that he just had a really vivid imagination and he used that as a coping mechanism when he was in times of distress? Let me know in the comments below, and if you like this video, please share it with other people. It does help out my channel, and hopefully you'll check out the next video.